Welcome back. So it's an economic heavy month entering November as the finance minister prepares to read the 2026 budget. He does that in exactly 2 weeks. Tonight, we're looking at the economy. Let me start off, before I even introduce my guest, by showing you a few charts that seem to suggest the country is on the right path. So as you know, the Bank of Ghana releases what it calls a summary of economic and financial charts. The latest release was for September 2025. So this was the month before October. And they would typically group these charts into thematic areas. So the first one they look at is the interest rates. And of course, interest rates give a sense of credit availability, particularly to the private sector. And so if you look at that, they have about 5 of them. The monetary policy rate, Ghana has cut its monetary policy rate by over 650 basis points if you look at the past 4 announcements. So it's quite big cuts. And these things are cut because the central bank sometimes wants to free up money in the system. So they use these interest rates to determine liquidity in a very interesting way. If they find there's too much money in the system, there's a way in which they raise the rate, and they can cut the rate to allow banks to lend more so people can have access to credit. Now, if you look on those charts carefully, you notice that they are all trending downwards. These charts begin from the 2023 January. So these are like a 2.5-year charts all the way to July 2025. So if you look on these charts, monetary policy rate is trending downwards, and you can notice the big drop from 2025. The Ghana reference rate is also generally trending downwards. Average lending rate, which is supposed to be how the banks react to this rate, is also trending downwards quite nicely. 2023 January, and we use 2023 because 2022 was where everything went crazy. We were kicked out of international capital markets, and we didn't have access to money from abroad. Inflation was in the upwards of 50s. So if you look at average lending rate, which is in your top right corner, 2023 January was above 35%. That's very, very high. We've seen a drop to around 23%. So that's not too bad. So they are trending downwards. Of course, private sector wants interest rates to be lower. So this is a good chart. So if you see these things trending downwards, it's positive, right? Interbank rates as well, generally trending downwards. You can see that big drop from around January 2025. All right, that suggests the new government and the policies they're taking. T-bill rates as well also trending down. We'll talk about T-bills later because it seems as if for a long time the government has been focused on raising a lot of money from the 1 year, 3 month, 9 month sort of window. Whether that's good or bad, we don't know. The next area to analyze the economy will obviously be inflation and exchange rates, right? And again, if you look at these charts, inflation is trending downwards. That's very positive, actually. As I said, in 2022, around September, inflation was terrible, over 55%. In fact, food inflation was close to 60%. So if you look at all the inflation measures, year on year, monthly, they're all trending downwards nicely. In fact, for the first time since 2021, we have what is called single-digit inflation, right? Great stuff. Now, the other point is the charts in the middle, the exchange rates. Again, because Ghana is a small open economy, a lot of times our vulnerability to foreign currency is a big issue. The cedi has depreciated since records started, but at least for the first 6-7 months of this year, it has appreciated. In fact, almost 35% appreciation on average if you compare this to previous years. So if you look at the cedi as well, it's held its own pretty well in the first few months of this government's administration. So the exchange rates to the cedi, to the dollar, cedi to pound, cedi to euro, all seem to be moving to the same direction, although people say stability is what we want, not just appreciation or depreciation. So again, on the exchange rates and the inflation rate side, Ghana seems to be doing the right thing. Now, there's this very interesting chart they call high-frequency economic indicators, because generally economists believe that we need to have things reflecting the real economy. So it's not just inflation and rates. They want to use other indicators to measure whether we are growing, all right? So there's something called the Real Cumulative Index of Economic Activity, real CIEA. That's supposed to trend upwards. It seems to be trending upwards, although you notice it trended down immediately into 2024. So first quarter 2024. So last part of 2023, 2024, it came down, but it sort of trended upwards a bit. And then they have what they call retail sales and domestic VAT collection. In most countries, consumption is important. Government spending, investment, and consumption is critical. So if people are spending and buying, it tells you the economy is doing the right thing. Although government expenditure itself is not necessarily rising that much. If you look at the first half of the year, government didn't spend as much as it said it would. And this was worrying because a lot of the money they should have spent on capital expenditure, they did not. That's also something else. They also have something they call port activity, which is going up. We don't know whether this is import activity or export, but port generally going up. Passenger arrivals going up, always good. Tourism, foreign exchange comes in. Cement sales as a proxy for building. Cement sales fluctuating. SNIT contributions also going up. Let's do the last group of charts. That's called the monetary development. Monetary development. So generally in an economy, I'm sure you know the difference. The fiscal is what the tax people and the finance ministry do, spending and collecting your money. Monetary developments have more to do with those who print money and also determine the availability of money to the banking sector and the rest of it. And that's a very interesting picture. My guest is an expert on monetary policy, so maybe he will explain to me what these charts mean. But it seems as if generally everybody agrees that Ghana's economy is on the right path. The other point is that we are an IMF program, and we went to the IMF in May 2023. And this program was to give us a little above $3.2 billion US credit, a facility to help stabilize the economy, to put us on the right path. We've done 5 reviews so far, and things seem to be going well. So one of the things I'll be asking my guests tonight is, what do these IMF programs try to do? Are we on the right path? What are the measures? What indicators show that we are doing well? And beyond the program, do we have the right foundation to actually grow as an economy? These are some of the questions we'll be asking our guests. So let me introduce him. Dr. Adrian Alter, the IMF resident rep for Ghana. Welcome to the show. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard. Pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. And where are you originally from, by the way?
So I am Romanian.
Okay.
But the past 12 years I spent in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was studying in Europe. I studied in Germany and Switzerland before moving from Romania.
Interesting. You know, we are football fanatics. So the 4 countries you just mentioned, we could be a football group at the World Cup. Ghana, Germany, Switzerland, and Romania. I don't know if Romania has qualified for the World Cup, though.
It's not yet, and since Georgi Hagi has not qualified to many World Cups.
So since Georgi Hagi left, you need a new good player.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Indeed.
So you've been to Africa a few times, haven't you?
Indeed. So basically, prior to moving to Ghana, I was covering the entire region as leading the regional economic outlook.
Okay.
And as a desk economist, I started with Tunisia in the north.
Okay.
Then I spent some time in Congo and in Semak, in Central Africa, and then in Lesotho in the south.
Okay.
And last year I came here for the third review.
Okay.
So I was part of the.
You're part of the third review team. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Ghana is a gateway to Africa, so it's always better to come to Ghana first. So you're welcome. What does the resident rep do? If they say somebody's a resident IMF rep, what's their job?
So the resident representative typically in a country is the primary liaison between the IMF, the authorities, the government, and the main stakeholders, development partners, private sector, civil society, and the media. In particular in Africa, and in Ghana, for instance, the RES rep has, let's say, 3 main objectives. First is to monitor the economy and to be the liaison with the government. Second, to be a trusted advisor to the government and the central bank, the BOG, on important specific structural reforms and issues.
Okay.
And thirdly, to manage the IMF office in Accra.
Okay.
Basically dealing with the local staff, hiring staff, managing the staff, and the office here.
So it's a full-time job. And when did you come to Ghana to assume this position? How long have you been here?
So I basically started in September, officially on the 2nd of September,
Wow.
2025. But I arrived a few weeks
Okay.
prior to that, just a couple of weeks before.
So you've done 2 months physically here, but because you were part of the third review team, you've been familiar with the Ghana story prior to coming, correct?
Indeed. So I spent about 3 months, if you think in total,
Yeah.
given the time
Yeah.
on the review mission.
Yeah, wonderful. So this current program is in its second year, I guess, right? Because we started in May 2023. So we are 2.5 years into the program.
Indeed.
And the program
Indeed.
ends 2026.
Indeed.
So it's a 3-year program.
Indeed.
Typically, how many reviews are done in the length of a 3-year program?
So typically you have 6 reviews.
6 reviews.
So we have just, let's say, completed the first stage of the 5th review,
Okay.
which was the visit here by the IMF staff. The IMF and the Ghanaian authorities have reached the staff level agreement. That's kind of the first milestone
Okay.
in completing the review. Now the team in DC is finalizing the report, which is going through a review process and eventually is submitted to the board. The board for the 5th review is expected in mid-December. And if everything goes well, 380 million equivalent dollars will be disbursed to the Ghanaian government. And
So that will be the 5th tranche of monies to be paid over the 3-year period.
indeed. And that brings the total to about 2.8 billion dollars dispersed so far. And basically there is one last tranche for the 6th review, which is expected to take place next year.
And this is a credit facility. That means it's a loan. But it's a concessionary loan, correct? That means it's not
Indeed.
at market rate.
Indeed. So interest rates are much lower, close to zero actually.
Okay.
If you compare that with non-concessional rates, what Ghana would borrow currently, which would be at the tune of 8-10% on the international markets, it's likely to be much better for the government.
I'm still asking very general questions without going to the specific program. So these loans that IMF gives countries, are they tied to specific projects, or they are generally just budget support? Or does it depend on the program? How does it work? If IMF gives you 3 billion, do you tell them what you want to do with it, or they tell you what to do with it?
So in general, the current program is for budget support.
Okay.
There are no projects attached.
Okay.
Other programs that the IMF has are, for instance, for BOP needs, and basically
Balance of payment.
Balance of payments, exactly. So rebuilding the reserves.
Okay.
And there are also some programs like the Resilience and Sustainability Trust, which are specifically tailored for building buffers for climate shocks or pandemic shocks.
Okay. So it really depends on what took the country to IMF for the loan. That would then determine which areas of usage the loan will be used for. So in this specific case, it's all the 3 billion for budget support. All the 3 billion for budget support. But what does budget support mean? Because not everybody listening is an economist. When you say budget support, what does it mean?
Basically, the money gets disbursed to the government, and the government, because once it had the debt restructuring taking place, it's a bit more challenging for the government to borrow. So essentially, it's a financing facility, and that comes, I think, it comes with a catalytic role. and it brings financing from other sources, for instance, from other development partners, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and so on. And those are not always for budget support. They are most of the time project-based. And that's kind of the to distinguish between an IMF loan and the World Bank facility.
So World Bank will usually do programs, projects, maybe directly into education or energy sector, but the IMF budget is broad. So the government may decide which aspects of its budget needs strengthening.
Exactly. It's not
earmarked.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Because the Minister of Finance is going to read the budget in 2 weeks, and which means that this 385, if it does come in, could be part of his revenue streams that he will use for certain things. But you don't tell him whether to use it for a road or for a school. He decides based on which part of the budget needs the blocking, correct?
Exactly.
That's how it works.
Exactly.
All right. We're talking to Adrian Alter, Dr. Adrian Alter, an IMF resident rep, and we're just basically trying to get a sense of the man. I know there are different kinds of economists, right? So what area of economics are you interested in personally?
So my background is basically built on extensive experience in monetary policy, foreign exchange management, debt sustainability, and financial stability.
Can you go through that again? Monetary policy, foreign
exchange management, FX management.
Okay.
Debt sustainability and financial stability. And I have previously worked before joining the fund at the European Central Bank and the Deutsche Bundesbank.
Oh, wow. It seems as if they look at your area of interest and they match it to a country's needs. because when I look at the things you just mentioned, they look like priority needs for Ghana. Monetary policy, obviously. Forex management, historically, yes. That is what brought us all here, right? And then financial stability. So, of course, every economist at the IMF level, at your level, must know a lot of things. But I think it's quite interesting, the coincidence of your interests with the situation that Ghana is in. Did you think that the board considered that in appointing in appointing you, because they felt like these are priority areas for Ghana too, correct?
Indeed, but I wasn't appointed by the board. You know,
okay.
I was basically recruited by the previous mission chief, Stéphane Roudet,
okay,
and the management of the African department. So.
Okay, so that's Dr. Selassie.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
I see. So when you came to Ghana, I came with Stéphane Roudet.
Exactly.
Okay, but now there's a new gentleman that led the fifth review.
Yes, his name is Ruben Atoyan. He is my new mission chief.
Ruben Atoyan. It sounds Turkish. Am I correct?
He's not Turkish. He's Armenian.
Slash
Russian.
Forgive me. All right. So when I started, I put a few things out. This is September data. From a layman's point of view, they seem okay. All right. But so let me ask you, what's your impression when you take a snapshot of Ghana's economy? Where is Ghana's economy? Are we doing well? Based on what I saw, it looked like we were, but I don't know. What do you say?
So, let me say from the onset that Ghana has made notable progress in economic recovery. Mm-hmm. If you look at the key economic indicators, inflation has eased from, as you mentioned, 54% to 9.4% in September 2025. And that's the first time we have single-digit inflation in the past 4 years. And that is also within the band of the BOG.
Yeah.
Then if you look at external balances, they also improve significantly. If you look at the international reserves, are now in the tune of 3 to 4 months of import coverage. And then these are basically these are important and clear positive signs. However, the full benefits of stabilization are still to be seen by the population and by the businesses on the ground. I think it still takes time for these effects to trickle down to the people, the Ghanaians on the ground.
So generally, the numbers will look good, and then if it is sustained, people will feel it. Is that how it happens everywhere else? So generally, the numbers will stabilize and look good, and then maybe after how long? A year, 2 years? When will people start feeling it? That's, I think, the question a lot of people ask.
Well, I think most of the effects, the stabilization effects, have already taken place. You know, if inflation comes down, then prices will stabilize. If the currency appreciates or stabilizes, again, goods, imported goods will feel cheaper. What it needs now is basically incomes to catch up, and thus, therefore, if you want, the purchasing power of the people will rebound after this shock and years of effort.
In Ghana, we make a lot of noise about single-digit inflation. I'm not sure. I mean, these are very high numbers, and generally, Africa has higher inflation figures than developed countries. Why is it important for inflation to be a single digit? Because it seems to be some number that economists look at. Why is single digit so important?
So the single digit inflation and inflation within the target band of the BOG basically means that the prices are well behaved. Businesses and people can forecast them much easier. And then on top of that, prices are linked to other economic parameters. For instance, increases in tariffs or increases in the benefits of the people that receive them. So in a nutshell, I would say if the economy is going well, as is the case for Ghana now, growing at 6%, plus in the first half of the year, and inflation at 9%, then you have about 15%, let's say, nominal growth. So you would expect that businesses will have an increase of about 15% in their revenues. But you know, what we have seen in real terms is that some sectors of the economy are doing better than the 6%. For instance, some of the services, agriculture sector. So those are even exceeding the average that you are seeing. So in theory, those businesses will do better and will have higher profits than the common company.
So you said something about the source of growth. So generally, services and agri seem to be growing faster than manufacturing. But you know that for countries to really develop, manufacturing base is important. Also, sometimes the labor intensity of growth is very critical. So a lot of times people say the economy is growing, but we can't feel it, right? So how important is it for us to trace those sources of growth to make sure that they are income increasing or they are from the right sources, right? Beyond the figure of 4% growth or whatever, how critical is it to look at those sources? And is there a right balance for growth for it to really free up the country?
So the team has estimated potential growth for Ghana at about 5% in real terms, okay? Now, the fact that we are now above potential at 6%, it's basically a good signal. It means that the economy is recovering strongly from the past underperformance, if you want. And with this rebound, you would expect more jobs to come into the economy. And with the stability of the macro stability, you would expect more investments to flood the economy. So hopefully that will generate more jobs, more revenue.
Interesting. We're speaking to Adrian Alter, who's the resident rep for IMF in Ghana, just feeling out what the economy looks like. Don't forget the finance minister will be presenting his budget in a couple of weeks, and we'll be doing many interviews in the build-up to that. Hopefully the minister himself will be here immediately after he reads the budget to explain himself to you. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at some of the key benchmarks the IMF gave for the program. How well are we doing on those benchmarks? And then we'll also address issues around fiscal responsibility and some of those big terms that economists like throwing about. This is the point of view. Stay with us.